All right, well, welcome to another Rock and More production, another great math lesson. And today's lesson is going to be on square roots. So fantastic! You can see how excited my son is in this one. But square roots, otherwise known as unsquaring a number. And our objectives today, or what you're going to know by the end of today, is you're going to be able to explain what the square root of a number is. So what does that actually mean? You're also going to be able to find the square root of a number. So whether using a calculator or just old school, trying to figure out what that is. So the first thing you want to do though is remember what exponents and square numbers are. So we're going to just review that briefly. You just did that lesson. Something like 4 to the third power. What does 4 to the third power mean? Well, we know 4 to the third power means 4 times 4 times 4. Otherwise, 3 fours. So 4 times itself 3 times. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. And then 16 times 4 is going to give us 64. You have to forgive my writing. I don't have my airliner going yet. So an exponent, when you have the third, it shows this. This would be the problem. And then, of course, here's our answer. The other one that is common, the common exponent, is 5 squared. Well, what does 5 squared mean? Well, that just means 2 5s, right? 5 times 5, okay? And 5 times 5 equals 25. Well, why do we call it squared? If you remember in the last lesson, we call this squared because if we made an array, it would be 5 by 5, which makes a square. So instead of saying 5 to the second power or 5 to the 2, we say 5 squared because when the number is the same, when it's just the two numbers, 5 by 5, it creates a square. Well, think about unsquaring or square root. It's going to be the opposite. So when we square root a number or try to unsquare a number, we're trying to break it down in the opposite. What number times itself equals that number? So square root or unsquaring is just like asking what number multiplied by itself equals 100, for example. Another way to write this is n times n equals 100. Well, what is n? That's what we're trying to find out. So finding n for n times n is 100 is finding the square root of the 100. You can think of it as unsquaring it, okay? So if we're trying to figure out what number times itself equals 100, one of the things that we can do that helps us out is to do a factor rainbow for the number. So if I did that for 100, I could do 1 and 100. And then I could say, okay, what might come next? I could say, well, 2 and 50. And then I keep going. I can't do 3. I could do 4 and 25. I could do 5 and 20. Starting to run out a little bit space here. And then what would come next? 5 and 20. Sorry, my numbers are all messed up. And then I can't do 6 times anything. 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. But 10 works. And it would be 10 times 10. So that happens to be my middle one. And it's going to be the same number. Whenever we have the one that is the same, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, and then this one's by itself, that's going to be our square root. So we know the square root of 100 is 10, or 10 times 10 equals 100. Well, for 17, squaring it, 17 times 7 is n, or 17 squared. The square root is the opposite, so n times n is 289, or here's our square root number. Whenever you see this in front of a number, they're asking for the square root. Well, we know if 17 times 7 equals 289, the square root of 289 is 17. It's the opposite. Think of it this way. If the number is the actual tree, the pretty leaves at the top. You like this drawing? Then the roots, the square root is what number times itself equals this number. And here's the monkey sound. It's what my math class sounds like sometimes. So that's our little hint to remember. So if we tried some of these, well, what's the square root of 9? Well, what times itself equals 9? Well, we know it's 3. 3 times 3 equals 9. Okay? Or n times n equals 9. So that would be n equals 3. Okay? Square root of 100, we just did. We know it's 10. So n times n equals 100. So 10 times 10 equals 100. That's how we think of it. If you're going to use a calculator, you're going to see this symbol right here on your calculator. And now I'm not showing it specifically because on some calculators, you might type the number in first, and then you're going to hit this symbol. Other calculators, you might type the symbol and then hit the number. Some of them you have to type the symbol, the number, a parentheses. So one way to figure out how your calculator works is use the number 9. Try and find the square root of 9, and we know the answer is going to be 3. So experiment with this button right here and the number 9 to get the square root, and you want the answer to be 3, and you'll be an expert on that. So couple to try before you start your worksheets, before you start your lesson. Square root of 25. What times what equals 25? Square root of 121 and the square root of 81. Try and solve those and check your answers on a calculator before you do it. And just for fun, all right, hopefully by now you know how to find the square root or unsquare a number. Have a great time in figuring it out. Bye.